This woman transmigrated into a novel. Instead of becoming the heroine, she became the villainous stepmother. She resolved to get on the villain's good side, only to discover that this villain was simply a little angel. She was originally just an ordinary kindergarten teacher, but she accidentally fell asleep while reading a novel at night. When she woke up, she had transmigrated into the villain's stepmother. In the original novel, the Sod family was the most formidable villainous force. All the conspiracies were inextricably linked to this family. Among them, Duke Cassius Sod was a major villain who could blot out the sky with one hand. And she had actually transmigrated into the Duke's wife, Rosalia. She covered her face, afraid to accept reality. Others transmigrate as the heroine, but she became a villain. Moreover, Rosalia was not only married, but also had a stepson. She had only read the novel before bed, yet she woke up as a duchess. She remembered the book mentioned a terrifying character. The biggest threat right now wasn't Duke Cassius, but the child before her eyes, Espada. He was the child left behind by Cassius and his late wife, and also the ultimate mastermind in the novel. The reason he became a villain was entirely due to his stepmother, Rosalia. She harbored resentment toward the Duke, so she often bullied Ace. Eventually, she died at Ace's hands. But when she actually saw Ace, she felt that the original Rosalia was truly vicious. How could she bear to bully such a cute child? This was simply a little angel. Rosalia was overflowing with motherly love. If Rosalia died, she wouldn't be able to live either. So the only thing she could do now was to raise Ace well and try her best to change the plot of the novel. She absolutely had to stop him from turning evil. Rosalia smiled gently at Ace. "Good morning, Ace." Ace was stunned. What was this behavior? Rosalia was smiling. He really didn't understand why Rosalia wanted to bully him. No matter what reason she had, she shouldn't do this. What mistake could a small child make? She slowly reached out her hand, wanting to touch Ace's little cheek, but Ace dodged. Rosalia froze. Had she already done something to him before? Why was Ace so afraid of her? Just then, Ace stood up. He indicated that he would take his leave first. However, he moved very slowly, glancing back at Rosalia from time to time. Rosalia understood. He wanted to stay with her a bit longer, didn't he? As an adult, she should give the child a way out. She said with a smile, "Ace, have you had breakfast?" Ace indicated that he hadn't eaten yet. Rosalia asked if he wanted to eat breakfast together. Ace looked at Rosalia with anticipation. "Can I really?" Rosalia took Ace toward the dining room. A family should eat together. This would improve their relationship. After all, she couldn't let herself be killed by such a cute child. This woman didn't transmigrate into a White Lotus heroine, nor did she become a notorious villainess. Instead, she became the villain's stepmother. To save her life, she had to curry favor with the villain. Seeing Ace's satisfied look, Rosalia felt extremely gratified. It was just eating a meal together, yet it made him so happy. Then she would set aside more time to eat with him in the future. Just then, a maid handed over a fruit platter. Rosalia frowned. Why were there no peaches on Ace's plate? Looking at the arrogant expressions of the maids, were the servants bullying him? Rosalia asked Ace if he liked peaches. Then she passed her own fruit plate over, asking if he wanted some. Ace looked at the fruit plate and fell silent for a moment. Finally, he began to eat in large bites. Rosalia happily stated that there was plenty more here, and he could eat as much as he liked. "Also, Ace, let's eat breakfast together tomorrow too." Ace nodded happily, a happy smile beaming on his face. After the two finished eating, although Rosalia wanted him to stay a bit longer, he was, after all, the heir to the Sod family, and his daily schedule was very full. So Rosalia could only watch him leave reluctantly. If only she could keep him a while longer. But it didn't matter. She could see him tomorrow anyway. She definitely had to prepare more delicious food for him. Early the next morning, Rosalia waited and waited, but Ace didn't come. She asked the maids, and they said the young master was still sleeping. Rosalia didn't believe it. How could such a diligent child sleep in? She wanted to go see Ace personally. Seeing that the situation was bad, the maids hurriedly suggested letting the young master rest properly. Rosalia ignored them and strode away. Since they were trying so hard to stop her, there must be a problem. Rosalia opened the door to Ace's room and saw Ace curled up in a blanket. So he really was sleeping in. Hearing that Rosalia had come, Ace quickly sat up, but his appearance gave Rosalia a huge fright. His body was covered in red marks. What on earth was going on? This woman was too pitiful, transmigrating into cannon fodder under a villain's hand. Fortunately, her identity was the villain's stepmother, so there was still a chance to salvage things. That was to curry favor with the villain. But looking at the scene before her, Rosalia was stunned. Ace was fine yesterday. Why did he have so many rashes today? A maid at the side answered, "The young master is allergic to peaches." Rosalia was shocked. No wonder there were no peaches on Ace's plate yesterday. The maid retorted, "Didn't you already know?" Rosalia was furious. No one told her. How would she know? After all, the original novel said Ace had no weaknesses. Would he think she deliberately made him eat peaches? It was truly unjust. She really didn't do it on purpose. But even though he was allergic to peaches, he still ate a lot without complaint. At the time, Rosalia watched him eat so much and was even very happy. Rosalia spoke slowly. "Ace, why did you force yourself to eat the peaches?" Ace apologized pitifully. Rosalia clenched her fists. The person who should be apologizing right now was her. Seeing his pitiful appearance, Rosalia felt heartache. If she had understood clearly beforehand, this wouldn't have happened. She wept like rain. "Dad, I'm sorry. This is all my fault. I promise this won't happen again." Now, it was Ace's turn to be anxious. "Dad, don't say that. How can this be your fault? Then can we still eat together tomorrow?" Rosalia held Ace's hand out, of course. "If there is any food you can't eat, you must tell me in advance." Ace immediately replied, "I don't have any food restrictions." Rosalia wiped her tears. "Silly child, don't you get allergies if you eat peaches?" Ace craved affection, which was why he wanted to behave well in front of her. Even though he knew he was allergic, he still smiled and ate the peaches. Rosalia secretly made up her mind that she must be more careful in the future and absolutely never let this happen again. She definitely had to protect him. After Ace fell asleep, Rosalia left the room. She looked toward Ace's wet nurse, Lenny Shaw. She should ask her for information. After all, she knew Ace very well. Rosalia spoke slowly. "Are there any other things Ace can't eat?" Lenny Shaw, however, indicated that she didn't need to know and said Rosalia's worry was superfluous. Rosalia got anxious. "He's still a child. How can I not worry?" Lenny Shaw said indifferently, "The young master will become devoid of any weaknesses in the future. Although he is allergic to certain things now, he won't be later." Rosalia felt indignant inside. If she didn't ask clearly first, she would definitely be looked down upon. Rosalia was, at any rate, the villain of the first half of the novel. She absolutely couldn't be manipulated like this. This woman transmigrated into the villain's stepmother. Yet now she was being lectured by a servant. She was, after all, the villain of the first half of the novel. How could she let herself be bullied? Although Rosalia was determined to become a good mother, she couldn't retreat without a bottom line. Lenny Shaw paused, then continued, "If I spoke out of turn just now, please forgive me." Rosalia was stunned. Was this person playing face-changing? Sure enough, Lenny Shaw spoke again. "This is the educational method passed down through generations of the Sod family. Even if you want to intervene, it is futile." After hearing these words, Rosalia couldn't say a single word. Ever since Ace's allergic reaction, all she could do was visit him every day, cancel those complicated lessons for him, and then drink tea and chat with him. Sometimes she would apply medicine for him. Under Rosalia's meticulous care, Ace gradually got better. Looking at Ace's cute face, Rosalia liked him more than words could say. She really hoped he could grow up safe and sound. This matter had finally come to an end. It was just that the disdainful looks from these maids were so stressful. They definitely thought she made Ace eat peaches on purpose. But did she really not know Ace was allergic to peaches? And what exactly was that educational method Lenny Shaw mentioned that day? Even the novel said Ace had no weaknesses. Could it be that they were using a method similar to building immunity by exposure to raise him, making him gradually develop a tolerance to things he couldn't eat, ultimately raising him into a person with no weaknesses? Rosalia was scared by her own imagination. This family's educational method was too terrifying. Seeing Rosalia constantly zoning out, Ace was worried. Was Mother sick? Rosalia snapped back to reality and smiled. Because I want to watch you eat. Rosalia felt that Ace was simply an angel. Before transmigrating, she lived in an orphanage and dealt with children every day. So after growing up, she naturally became a kindergarten teacher. She used to be an orphan, so she longed for the warmth of a family. She didn't expect that after transmigrating into the book, she would actually have a family. Although she didn't know what the future held, she would definitely try her best to protect Ace. After sending Ace back to his room, a man's voice came from behind her. Have you been well lately? Rosalia suddenly remembered that she had forgotten an important matter. The villain in this novel wasn't just Ace. This woman had just sent the little villain back to his room when she ran into the big villain. But what was exciting was, why were the villains in novels always so handsome? How could anyone resist this? Looking closely, Ace and Cassis really looked alike. Wouldn't Ace be even more handsome when he grew up? Just as Rosalia was lost in thought, Cassis stepped closer and asked where she had just been. Upon learning that Rosalia had just accompanied Ace for breakfast, Cassis was somewhat surprised. He mocked. It seems your mother-son relationship is quite good. What exactly are you trying to do? Rosalia understood. From his perspective, her attitude toward Ace had done a 180-degree turn. It was normal for him to be suspicious. Rosalia said seriously, isn't a harmonious mother-son relationship normal? Cassis was silent for a moment before speaking. When did you start changing your mind? Did you forget? You clearly said yourself that you didn't want to have any relationship with the ducal house. Rosalia was extremely embarrassed. The previous Rosalia had indeed said such things. Looking at it now, it was really a slap in the face. She had to muddle through that I did say that. But after seeing Ace, I changed my mind. He is still small and at the age where he needs parental care. Besides, he is so cute and kind. I just want to fulfill a mother's responsibility. Ace is a sensible child. I must take good care of him. Cassis was somewhat surprised. Ace is cute? How did she come to that conclusion? Just then, an attendant arrived carrying a sack covered in tomato sauce. Cassis didn't continue questioning Rosalia. Instead, he said to her, "See you next time," and left with the attendant. Watching this scene, Rosalia was badly frightened. No wonder Cassis was a villain. So he was doing these things every day. Meanwhile, the other little villain was in his room lecturing the servants. Ace completely changed from his usual cute image. He stared sternly at the servants in front of him. "Lenny Shah, did you say rude things to my mother?" Lenny Shah spoke tremblingly. "I was just worried the madam would continue questioning, so I..." Before she could finish, she knelt on the ground. Ace spoke coldly. "You should worry about your own head." Seeing Lenny Shah begging for mercy incessantly, Ace let her off. But he still issued a warning to them. "Listen well. Since she is my mother, you must be respectful to her." What is it like to have a two-faced villain son and a wife who clearly hated her stepson? Yet the two were now uncharacteristically intimate. Cassis was very troubled by this. This is too strange. He found Ace and said straight to the point, "What tricks are you playing?" Ace played dumb to, "I don't know what you're talking about." Cassis left no room for argument. "I heard you were very well behaved in front of Rosalia. What are you plotting?" Ace stared at his father. "Isn't it normal for a son to listen to his mother? I like her very much, so please don't meddle. If you scare her away, I absolutely won't let the matter drop." Cassis stared at his own son. See, this was his true face. In the 2 days after talking with Ace, Cassis had been observing in secret. The servants didn't lie. They really seemed like a real mother and son. It seemed they were getting along well. Suddenly, a scream brought Cassis back to his thoughts. It turned out he was stepping on a scarred man under his foot. The man begged for mercy tremblingly, only to receive a ruthless kick from Cassis. Cassis smiled faintly. Since they ate breakfast together every day, he would go join the fun too. In the dining room, Ace maintained a smile throughout. The maids beside them were trembling with fear. Sometimes they would have the illusion that the young master was an innocent and naive child. However, he wasn't. Ace recalled the scene where Rosalia cried. He originally thought she made him allergic on purpose, but judging by her expression, she really seemed unaware. If he hadn't been trying his best to hold it in back then, he really would have laughed out loud. She actually cried from guilt. How interesting. To experience this kind of fun a few more times, he had to continue playing this role well. To be a kind and sensible child. Hearing a sound from behind the door, Ace stood up and flashed a smile. However, when he saw that the person arriving was Cassis, Ace immediately switched to a look of disgust. "Why are you here?" Cassis found a seat and sat down. I just want to eat breakfast with you too. Outside the door, Rosalia was already stunned. Why was Cassis here? Could it be he wanted to eat breakfast together? Sure enough, Cassis explained his intention. He was here to join the fun. Rosalia wanted to cry, but had no tears. What exactly did this man want to do? This woman, in order not to die at the hands of her villain stepson, could only curry favor with him in this life. However, she forgot there was another villain in the novel. At the dining table, Rosalia enthusiastically served food to Ace. The two were as intimate as a real mother and son. After glancing at them, Cassis spoke coldly. You two have a good relationship. Rosalia laughed awkwardly, only hoping in her heart that this breakfast would end quickly. Ace looked at Rosalia and spoke with concern. Mother, your complexion isn't good. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Rosalia was extremely moved. This little guy was actually concerned about her. What a good child. She smiled and comforted Ace. I'm fine. Maybe I just haven't slept well these past few days. Then she handed the food to Ace, telling him to eat well. However, Cassis got angry. What exactly are you doing? Rosalia was startled. Why did he suddenly lose his temper? He wouldn't be thinking of hurting Ace, right? Cassis stared into Rosalia's eyes. Are you finally willing to look at me? Rosalia was confused. Could the reason for his anger be that she hadn't paid attention to him? But seeing his serious face, who could have an appetite? The good atmosphere was ruined by him. Just as Rosalia hesitated about what to say, Ace spoke up to diffuse the situation. The meat you gave me just now was really delicious. I want to eat some more. Rosalia breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to Ace, the atmosphere didn't reach a freezing point. Under this awkward atmosphere, this breakfast finally ended. Rosalia was more tired than after running 800 meters. She had originally wanted to go for a walk with Ace. It seemed that would have to wait for next time. Just then, Cassis spoke. Let's eat breakfast together, the three of us from now on. No matter what, we are a family. I was negligent during this time. From now on, let's eat together. This news was like a bolt from the blue for Rosalia. Her alone time with Ace was going to be shattered. After walking out of the dining room in a daze, Rosalia bid farewell to the father and son. What should she do in the future? After Rosalia left, Ace seemed like a different person. What exactly do you want to do? Can't you just stay away from her? These two were clearly father and son, yet neither found the other pleasing to the eye. Facing his indifferent son, Cassis insisted on going against him. Why should I listen to you? Ace spoke slowly. It seems you are treating my words as wind past your ears. Cassis got interested. So what? Do you really like her that much? This silenced Ace. He turned his head and walked away. Before leaving, he didn't forget to add one sentence that don't go too far. What if you scare her away? Watching his sons retreating back, Cassis was stunned. He originally thought Ace was just saying it casually. He didn't expect Ace to be serious, actually afraid that he would scare Rosalia away. How ridiculous. But was she really that good? In her room, Rosalia was full of motivation. She had been revolving around Ace every day lately and knew nothing about her own affairs. Now she had to figure out quickly why she harbored resentment toward Cassis. Could it be because Cassis was stingy with money, so she became dissatisfied? Rosalia took the documents handed over by the butler. The next second, she was stunned in a way. How many digits is this exactly? Rosalia actually had so much money to spend. Since she didn't lack money, why would she resent Cassis? But right now, she was in a very good mood. She turned out to be a hidden wealthy woman. Ordinary people couldn't earn this amount of money, even if they work hard for a lifetime. She really didn't understand what Rosalia was dissatisfied with. No wonder novel protagonists didn't want to go back when they transmigrated. But pies don't fall from the sky. She still had to be careful everywhere in the future. After the butler left, Ace's wet nurse, Lenny Shaw, came in. Madam, I came to apologize to you. I hope you can forgive my offense last time. Rosalia looked at her terrified face in confusion. She was so arrogant before. Why would she come to apologize? Listening to her voice, it sounded like she was about to cry. Thinking about it now, she was probably also afraid that Rosalia would harm Ace back then, which was why she contradicted her like that. Rosalia reached out her hand to Lenny Shaw. I can understand your feelings. Get up first. I forgive you. Lenny Shaw choked with sobs. She didn't expect Rosalia to be so magnanimous. Perhaps she had misunderstood her before. Since this incident, the servants who were previously very cold to Rosalia now did a 180-degree turn. Everyone was respectful to Rosalia. However, Rosalia could sense the timidity hidden behind their respect. What exactly had happened again? Who would have thought that this angel-like boy actually had two faces? In front of his mother, he was a cute little puppy, but behind the scenes, he was a villain who made people tremble. Ace stood with his back to Lenny Shah, playing with the flower in his hand. He spoke coldly. "Did you apologize?" Lenny Shah lowered her head in fear. "Yes, the madam has forgiven me." Although Ace's back was just that of a small child, his aura was as powerful as a demon. "You all show her some respect from now on." The servants hurriedly lowered their heads, indicating they would remember. Ace turned his head and glanced at them that if something similar happens again, I won't let the matter drop. Then Ace crushed the flower in his hand. If they didn't listen, their fate would be just like this crushed flower. In the garden, Rosalia was leaning against a tree, taking a nap. Not far away, Ace walked over slowly. The maid at the side hurriedly woke Rosalia up. Rosalia opened her eyes. When she saw Ace opposite her, she quickly pretended she hadn't been asleep, smiling as she greeted him. "Why are you here? Are your lessons over already?" Ace indicated that it was break time. Rosalia asked, "Did you come specifically to find me?" Ace smiled faintly that I knew you would be here. Seeing Rosalia's shy appearance, Ace felt very satisfied. He just wanted to see this expression of hers. She was clearly flustered a second ago, but the moment she saw him, she immediately beamed with joy. Ace had intended to chat with Rosalia, but he discovered that Cassis had actually arrived not far away. He quickly pulled Rosalia away. He wouldn't let anyone ruin such a wonderful time. Cassis stared at Ace's retreating back. That child is truly cunning. Once Rosalia discovers Ace's true colors, she will definitely regret it. I believe she won't be able to smile for much longer. In the early morning, Cassis, who had stayed up all night, had a desk full of documents before him. However, his mind was full of the scene he saw in the garden today. It made him completely unable to calm down. When exactly did those two become so close? This man was unsettled. His own son was actually that close to his wife, while he was like an outsider. They are members of the Sod family, after all. What was with all that giggling and laughing? Cassis clenched his fists. I am definitely only this irritated because of that. The butler at the side saw that Cassis was distracted. It was almost dawn, so he suggested, "Why don't you go rest for a while?" Cassis stood up abruptly, startling the butler. "Where are you going?" Cassis spoke indifferently. "I'm going to eat breakfast." Saying that, he strode towards the dining room. Last time, he had said he would eat breakfast with them in the future, but he had been too busy recently. So much so that he hadn't fulfilled that promise. I wonder what their reaction will be when they see me. To be honest, it's actually quite amusing. Outside the dining room, Rosalia had just opened the door when she saw a reality she didn't want to accept. Oh God, why is Cassis here again? Ever since he said those words last time, she had been on edge every day. She didn't expect him to actually come today. Rosalia could only greet him awkwardly. Cassis explained, "I've been too busy recently and haven't had time to eat with you. I just happened to remember today, so I came over. Don't just stand there, sit down quickly." The Duke's menu was simply too good. Every dish was exquisite. However, Rosalia had no leisure to appreciate it because Cassis kept staring at her. Why is he doing this? It's so awkward. Rosalia raised her eyes, only to accidentally meet Cassis's gaze. When will this meal end? I really want to go back quickly. Ace once again helped Rosalia out of the predicament, smiling as he changed the subject. Rosalia breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Ace was there with her. Otherwise, she would have died of embarrassment alone. Watching the two of them talking and laughing, an indescribable annoyance rose in Cassis's heart. His fists slammed onto the table. The dinner plates flew up high. This startled Rosalia. Ace's eyes also sharpened. What is he trying to do? Rosalia wanted to cry, but had no tears. What kind of madness is this now? Can we even eat a proper meal? Facing her eccentric husband, the woman felt helpless. He must be crazy. No, he has anger management issues, right? Recently, Rosalia felt very tired. The servants had changed their usual attitude and were suddenly respectful to her, which made her very unaccustomed for a while. And then there was Cassis, staring at her all the time while eating, freezing her so much she couldn't eat properly. It seems the life of the rich is not easy. Inside the room, Ace stared at his father in front of him and spoke slowly. What exactly are you trying to do? I clearly warned you not to scare her. Besides, you said eating breakfast only burdens the body, so you never eat it. Cassis retorted, aren't you the same? Ace countered, I learned that from you. If you ate breakfast every day, I would certainly be influenced by what I see and hear and gradually develop this good habit. And now, for me, breakfast symbolizes the start of the day, so I will definitely eat it on time. This time, Cassis didn't argue with his son. Instead, he began to agree that you're right. Then starting tomorrow, I will eat breakfast with you too as well. Since this conversation, Cassis ate breakfast with Rosalia and Ace every day. At the dining table, he continued to stare at Rosalia, causing her food to taste like nothing. Aside from breakfast time, Rosalia often ran into Cassis within the Duke's residence. Unsurprisingly, Cassis still stared at her intently. Rosalia was speechless. Truly unlucky. Why did I run into him again? Is he monitoring me? Cassis looked at Rosalia and then looked at the thunderous weather outside the window. This weather is very suitable for handling business. Rosalia wanted to cry. Handling what business? Is it murder? Or kidnapping? Or threats? Cassis spoke coldly. What's wrong with you? Why are you shaking like that? Am I that scary? Rosalia thought, with that look of yours, anyone who didn't know better would think you were going to kill me. Although the sentence was eerie, Rosalia actually saw disappointment in his eyes. Did I see it wrong? But she still couldn't forget everything she saw that day. The blood-stained sack and the blood residue in the hallway. The most frightening thing was that Cassis seemed accustomed to these things. I might be afraid of him for the rest of my life. Inside the room, Cassis's mind was full of Rosalia and Ace. She was very enthusiastic towards Ace, but her face changed immediately upon seeing him. I haven't offended her, have I? This difference in treatment is too big. Cassis stomped his foot down hard. A scarred man groaned in pain. Spare me. I'll talk, okay? Cassis asked back, you're willing to talk so soon? But it's already too late. I took a fancy to your talents back then, but you were indeed a spy sent by Julian. But none of this escapes my eyes. Julian probably thinks his scheme has succeeded. Looking at the blood on the floor, Cassis suddenly had an epiphany. Rosalia is so afraid of me. Was she scared by this guy back then? Then what should I do now? This woman was too unlucky. In this life, not only did she have to win over the villain's son, but she also had to be entangled with the villain husband. At this moment, Rosalia was napping in the garden, enjoying the breeze. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Cassis. Rosalia was shocked. Was he watching me sleep just now? Rosalia asked in surprise. Why are you here? Do you need something from me? Cassis spoke slowly. Were you frightened by that person you ran into last time? Seeing Rosalia look confused. What on earth is he talking about? Cassis continued. Before joining the Sod family, you should have been mentally prepared. That kind of bloody scene is indeed hard to accept, but once you see more of it, you'll naturally get used to it slowly. If you're afraid of even that kind of small scene, what will you do in the future? Rosalia nodded, indicating she understood and would try her best to adapt. Cassis said these words to warn me, right? But can I really adapt to those bloody scenes? Rosalia didn't want to continue the conversation. She turned around intending to excuse herself, but was called back by Cassis. Is there anything you want? I will try my best to satisfy you. Rosalia was stunned. What is with this person? He was just warning me, and now he's asking this kind of question? Rosalia certainly had something she wanted. That was for him not to bring half-dead people home. But she couldn't tell him that directly. It was really impossible to say. After holding it in for a long time, Rosalia could only indicate that she didn't want anything. Cassis said faintly, then I'll give you a bit more allowance this month. After all, women love to shop, don't they? Rosalia refused and stated that she had enough money. The allowance he gives is already an astronomical figure, okay? Cassis continued, then do you want to manage the Duke's household? This made Rosalia even more troubled. Managing the Duke's household? Forget it. I am very satisfied with my current life and don't need anything. Cassis's words were already unsettling enough, but what was even more helpless was what followed. Her originally cold husband was acting out of character and suddenly started caring about her. Rosalia didn't feel happy. Instead, she felt very helpless. Now, every morning, Cassis would eat breakfast with him, and he would keep staring at Rosalia. Rosalia remained silent. It seems I'm not yet ready to become a member of the Sod family, but she had to adapt as soon as possible so she could help Ace grow up smoothly. After breakfast, Ace could no longer restrain himself. He found Cassis and got straight to the point. Can you stop doing those strange things? What do you mean by this? Why do you always have to scare her? Cassis rubbed his head, indicating he wasn't scaring Rosalia. Ace sighed. Then you might as well ignore her like before. At least that was relatively normal. Cassis frowned. Then shouldn't you also reflect on your abnormal behavior? I think you should have heard it too. Recently, everyone says you've become more and more obedient and cute. Ace smiled. Are you worried about me? But I don't need you to trouble yourself over such small matters. The smell of gunpowder instantly erupted between the two. This made the subordinates around them sweat nervously. Just then, the man behind Ace made a sound. He thought to himself, oh no, it seemed this spy had been discovered. Those political enemies staring dead at the Sod family, the countless spies, and the Prime Minister Julian standing at the center of power. All of it made him feel bored and irritable. Ace looked coldly at the man. Can I kill him now? Cassis didn't object, that he has no use left anyway. Letting him go would be a hidden danger to our family, and even the entire country. Ace turned and walked towards a man, picking up an arrow from the ground. Then, with a clean shake, he finished off the dying man. After coming out of the room, Ace wiped the sweat from his face. The attendant at the side reminded Ace to take a bath because there was a fencing lesson later. You will sweat a lot during the lesson, so it's better to bathe. Ace said faintly later, I need to go somewhere now. Looking closely, the boy's hand recovered in scratches. As a noble, he ignored the servant's dissuasion and personally picked fresh flowers to give to his stepmother. Rosalia took the flowers, extremely happy. Are these flowers for me? Ace nodded and smiled brilliantly. Rosalia looked at the wounds on Ace's hands, feeling very distressed. He hurt his hands just to pick flowers. Rosalia hugged Ace. Thank you, I like them very much. Ace is simply an angel. He hasn't been tainted by the world yet. However, if things develop according to the original novel, one day he will be covered in blood too. Rosalia secretly made up her mind. I must protect him well and let him grow up healthy and happy. 1 week later, looking at the withered flowers, Rosalia felt it was a great pity. Also, what gift should she give Ace? Just then, a maid stepped forward and asked, Madam, are you not going out this week? Rosalia paused. Now that she mentioned it, since transmigrating, let alone traveling far, she hadn't even stepped out of the Duke's main gate. She almost forgot. The Rosalia in the original novel was a social butterfly. The maid continued to remind her, there's a gathering recently. This gathering will be held at Marquis Xiaoweng's residence. If you don't order a dress soon, it will be too late. Rosalia remembered. This was a family exchange meeting led by the Sod family. Each family would bring their juniors to attend the gathering. On the surface, this gathering was to consolidate relationships between families. But in reality, it was also a good opportunity for them to observe their competitors. In the original novel, this was one of the few gatherings that Rosalia and Cassis attended together. Although she really didn't want to go, she still had to prepare in advance. Rosalia decided to take Ace shopping with her. She wanted to buy lots of nice clothes for Ace. He would definitely look good in anything. No sooner said than done. Rosalia immediately went to Ace's room. However, the room was empty. The maids indicated that Ace had left with the Duke, seemingly for a fencing lesson. Rosalia was puzzled. Why Cassis of all people? She had to go see. That boy was too ruthless. To prove he had the ability to become the heir, he actually drank large amounts of poison to increase his resistance. Just now, Ace was training in swordsmanship with his teacher. But after a short while, Ace was already panting, feeling his body disobeying him. Lenny Shaw, at the side, was very worried. She suggested letting Ace rest for a while. But Ace insisted on continuing. Lenny Shaw was even more worried. How can he be okay? To cultivate his body's resistance to poison, he had taken an even stronger poison this time. Ace gritted his teeth and persisted. Today I must prove to Father that I have the strength to become the family heir. Then let's continue. He gripped the weapon in his hand tightly and swung it forcefully. After 2 consecutive moves, he felt a wave of dizziness and then began to cough violently. Lenny Shaw rushed up anxiously. Young master, are you all right? Ace gasped for air, indicating he was fine. It seems I need to adjust the dosage next time. Just then, Cassis spoke coldly. It seems your resistance to this poison isn't strong enough. Let's stop the training here for today. However, they didn't expect that Rosalia, who had rushed over, heard all these words. Rosalia couldn't believe it. Did you say poison? What exactly is going on? Beside them, Ace fainted due to the drug's effects. Rosalia hurriedly held him in her arms. Cassis asked, how did you know about this place? Rosalia changed her usual attitude and stared fiercely at Cassis. That question isn't important right now. Please tell me, what exactly is going on? Cassis spoke slowly, since Ace is the heir of the Sod family. This is training he must accept. You have no right to interfere. Rosalia shouted, I am his mother. How can I turn a blind eye to something like this? You, How can you make a child do this kind of cruel training? Cassis was dismissive. So what? I also went through this training when I was young. Rosalia was furious. You lunatic. This sentence not only startled Cassis, but the other servants were frightened out of their wits. Rosalia actually dared to speak to the Duke like that? She really doesn't want to live. This woman, who had always been timid and cowardly, actually cursed at the Duke. The servants at the side were stunned. The butler quickly explained, the young master has already begun to adapt to the poison, and we strictly control the dosage. Please do not worry. Rosalia was eager to protect her son. So what? Do you think a child can drink poison? Ace was stunned. Rosalia usually didn't dare to make eye contact with his father, but now she was throwing a tantrum for his sake. In his memory, no one had ever cared about him. This was the first time he felt the feeling of being loved. Ace clutched his heart. What was happening? It's suddenly beating so fast there. Cassis explained patiently. This is the educational method passed down through generations of the Sod family. So far, there haven't been any mistakes. Rosalia asked back, no mistakes? Then why is Ace in so much pain? Cassis spoke slowly. This is a trial he must pass as the heir. However, I didn't expect you to care so much about Ace's education. Rosalia pondered. In the original novel, Rosalia didn't care about Ace at all. But since she had become her, she had to fulfill a mother's responsibility. Rosalia said firmly, I am Ace's mother, so of course I have the right to inquire about his education. Anyway, I firmly oppose this cruel method of education. Besides, do you think Ace can withstand this kind of agonizing training? Cassis stared at Ace. What do you think? If you stop the medicine now, you will have a fatal weakness. You might even lose your life because of it. However, Ace didn't speak. This made Cassis a bit anxious. Answer me. Ace said seriously, I don't want to take the medicine anymore. I want to listen to Mother. Rosalia was very satisfied. She glanced at Cassis. You heard him, right? Then we will take our leave first. Then she turned and left with Ace. On the way, Rosalia recalled the scene that just happened. It was really too much. Then she held Ace's hand. I'm sorry, Ace. I scared you just now, didn't I? Are you still feeling unwell? Ace smiled faintly. I'm much better already. The two returned to the room. Rosalia was still worried and repeatedly instructed Ace to tell her if he felt uncomfortable and that he couldn't drink poison in the future. After letting Ace rest well, Rosalia walked out of the room. What should I do to get Ace out of this kind of education? No matter what, I have to do something. Soon, she arrived at Cassis's room. This was something Cassis had expected long ago. He just didn't expect her to come so quickly. This woman, who had always been afraid of her villain husband, was now going to negotiate with him. Cassis stared at Rosalia, waiting for her next words. Duke, I want to talk to you about Ace's education. I will absolutely not agree to let him continue taking poison. I hope you won't force him to do things that harm his body. Cassis spoke slowly. Rosalia, you were clearly very afraid of me before, yet now you dare to bargain with me. Rosalia cheered herself on. I absolutely cannot back down. As a member of the Sod family, I have to be brave too, don't I? Cassis spoke coldly. Do you truly trust Ace, or are you pretending to trust him? You don't really think he is an innocent child, do you? Rosalia was stunned. What do you mean? Cassis kindly explained. Ace is not a simple child. He isn't innocent. You absolutely must not confuse the descendants of the Sod family with those ordinary children. What I mean is, you have been deceived by Ace's superb acting, so you'd better not worry about him. Cassis looked at Rosalia's expression. She seemed very surprised. Rosalia didn't believe it. Duke, since you don't understand Ace, don't judge him casually. As a loyal reader of the original novel, Rosalia certainly knew about Ace's various evil deeds. But Ace was also her son in this life. Shouldn't she favor her own son? Even if he couldn't do it, he shouldn't slander him. It's really too much. He doesn't care about Ace at all. That's why when the Rosalia in the novel abused Ace, he stood by and watched. Rosalia retorted to Cassis. Ace is afraid I'll worry, so no matter how hard it is, he smiles and tells me it's okay. Even if the training intensity is high, he never complains. Ace is a very strong-willed child. You should praise him more. At the same time, you should also tell him not to push himself too hard. Did you even visit once when Ace was sick? Even sending a servant to convey a few words of greeting would have been fine. I hope you can care for him a little more in the future. Rosalia knows that Ace is still young. As long as she educates him properly, he definitely won't turn into an irredeemable villain. What kind of experience is it to battle wits and courage with two villains? Facing the little villain, she has to teach him to be a good person. Facing the big villain, she has to make him love properly. Protecting her son, Rosalia exclaimed that she was mentally exhausted. Cassis said coldly, "Detoxification relies on enduring it yourself. I probably drank over 100 types of poison when I was a child. So now, I could say I am invulnerable to all poisons." Rosalia asked, "When you drank poison, did nothing ever go wrong?" Cassis did not deny it. Of course there were errors. "I also almost died." Rosalia was even more puzzled. "Since there is a danger to his life, why do you still make him risk it personally?" Cassis explained, "If Ace cannot even adapt to these poisons, he will definitely die at the hands of others in the future. As the heir, he must learn to adapt to these things." Rosalia was very dissatisfied. Although she had guessed he would use such words to make excuses, she really couldn't listen to it anymore. Rosalia clenched her fists, telling herself to endure it well. After all, what she had to say next was the main point. Rosalia spoke slowly. "In short, I want to participate in Ace's education from now on. As his mother, I indeed haven't cared enough for him all these years. So, I want to start teaching him properly from now on. I hope he can support me." Rosalia knew Cassis wouldn't agree immediately, but she had to at least propose it first. However, what was unexpected was that Cassis agreed readily. "Okay, go do whatever you want." Rosalia was stunned. She thought he would object. She confirmed again, "Really? You can't go back on your word." Cassis smiled, of course. Although Rosalia didn't know why he agreed so readily. As long as he consented, things would be easier to handle later. Rosalia smiled faintly. "I've finished what I had to say. Then I'll go back first. From now on, let her protect Ace. She must guide him onto the right path." Cassis watched Rosalia's retreating figure. In a while, she would discover Ace's true face. This is the fate of a villain. As a member of the Sod family, everyone's ending is either to kill or be killed. To survive, one must be ruthless to oneself. Before being killed, one must strike first. This is the educational method passed down in the Sod family. Without undergoing this kind of tempering, the Sod family would be utterly vulnerable before enemies. In fact, whether it is taking poison or making him have no weaknesses, it is all to protect him. If Rosalia really wants to become a member of the Sod family, she should have understood this principle sooner. This is a big villain family. In order to become villains invulnerable to all poisons, they drink hundreds of poisons from a young age. Therefore, the Sod family has a poison collection room, which keeps various poisons and antidotes. To collect these things, the Sod family poured in a massive amount of manpower and financial resources. The collection room is equipped with a dedicated administrator. However, just in case, Duke Cassis often changes the placement of the poisons. The reason the Sod family cares so much about poison is that poison is their most powerful weapon. The butler stepped forward to remind Cassis. There is news that they are meeting privately again. Cassis smiled faintly. Those smug fellows. Do they think they can hide it from me by meeting late at night? They are all enemies of the Sod family. Gathering together now, they definitely want to discuss how to deal with us. I wonder what conspiracy those idiots will come up with this time. Then I'll just play along with them. Cassis ordered the butler to report exactly what they said at the gathering, word for word. The butler nodded in acknowledgement, "By the way, Duke. There is one more thing. The young master's poison training is only halfway done. Do you really intend to let him stop the training?" Cassis knew his son very well. Ace definitely also knew what stage he was at. Even so, he still refused the training. "Then let him be." The butler was surprised, but he didn't speak. Perhaps the Duke was just feigning compliance with the young master's decision. Actually, he had already made other arrangements. He used to be so domineering. Why would he suddenly compromise this time? Moreover, now he would smile from time to time. He still couldn't get used to that kind of smile. Night, a group of people wearing cloaks gathered together. A man spoke up. "You weren't followed, were you?" The bearded man said, "Of course not. It's not our first time attending a gathering." Another long-haired man was very anxious. "Let's get straight to the point. Recently, Duke Sod has become increasingly rampant. It is because of this royal dog that our power is becoming weaker and weaker. If we don't do something, we could be wiped out by that evil family at any time. Even if it's for our descendants, we must get rid of the Sod family's little monster." Who would have thought that the villain feared by a group of people was actually a child? The man shouted about getting rid of the Sod family's little monster. Another person said, "We understand these principles too, but the undercover agents sent to the Sod Duke's residence have all died. Next, it will be our turn. Rather than dying in vain, we might as well carefully consider how to coexist with them." These words made the others very dissatisfied. How could we possibly coexist with that kind of insidious family? The Hat Man said, "But we really have no choice right now. We'd better plan for the road ahead early. The emperor, that old fox, definitely won't give up on the Sod family. In the eyes of the common people, he may be a wise ruler, but to the nobles, he is a robber who collects taxes. So we cannot rely on the emperor. We must turn our gaze to the crown prince. I heard he and the Sod family do not get along. As long as we continue to destroy the relationship between them, after the crown prince ascends the throne, the Sod family will definitely be cleaned up by him. The others agreed very much. This method is really good. I heard the crown prince and Marquis Wright's daughter are very close. While the crown prince is still young, we can push the boat with the current and make them become more intimate. Regarding this proposal, someone objected, this method is very difficult to implement. Marquis Wright cares very much about the people's livelihood. He never does anything that harms the people's livelihood. The crown prince is very clear about the threat the Sod family poses to the royal family. When he ascends the throne, he will definitely eradicate them in one fell swoop. Another man stated, we cannot keep waiting. At the same time, we must continue to plan the assassination. The Hat Man raised an objection again that could very likely be counterproductive. If you don't want to lose your little lives, don't get discovered by the people of the Sod family. The others nodded, indicating they would be careful. However, what they didn't expect was that their every move tonight was heard clearly by a man hiding behind the bushes. Outside the room, Rosalia opened the door to Ace's room. Ace was still sleeping soundly. Luckily, she came early, otherwise she wouldn't have seen this scene. Suddenly, Rosalia recalled what Cassis had said, Ace not a simple child, truly laughable, speaking as if he understands Ace so well. Just then, Ace slowly opened his eyes. His cute appearance simply melted Rosalia's heart. Even if everything Cassis said was true, it didn't matter. As long as she took care of Ace wholeheartedly, he would definitely change slowly. If your son is a villain, what would you do? Rosalia decided to use her heart to influence him. Seeing Rosalia, Ace quickly sat up. Why are you here? Rosalia smiled and explained, I came to find you to have breakfast together. Ace hurriedly got out of bed. I'll go change clothes right now. In the dining room, Rosalia asked Ace how his health was. Ace indicated that his body was much better. Rosalia looked at him and said, I've already talked to the Duke. He won't force you to do those terrifying trainings in the future. So don't put so much pressure on yourself either. Never force yourself. However, Ace fell silent. Rosalia wondered why Ace wasn't speaking. She thought he would be very happy. The next second, Ace smiled brilliantly. Thank you, mother. Looking at Ace's smile, Rosalia breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed those trainings really distressed him. Fortunately, calling a stop now wasn't too late. By the way, Ace, let's go out together later. Seeing Ace stunned, Rosalia explained, in a few days, we have to attend a party. Just in time to take advantage of the free time now to buy a few new clothes. Ace smiled and agreed. Rosalia stated, then let's go tomorrow. While buying clothes, we can also buy some delicious food. What do you want to eat? Ace maintained his smile. As long as I am with you, whatever we eat, I feel it is delicious. After returning to the room, Lenny Shaw brought a new vase. However, the scene before her eyes stunned her. The young master was actually holding a bottle of poison in his hand. Ace gripped the vial tightly and said coldly to Lenny Shaw, don't tell my mother, because I don't want her to worry. Lenny Shaw nodded. It seemed the young master was only pretending to stop taking the poison. Just then, Cassis walked in. Didn't you say yourself that you didn't want to drink the medicine anymore? Then he let Lenny Shaw withdraw, walked to the sofa alone, and sat down. Cassis stared at Ace. How was the taste? Ace was speechless. Do you taste the flavor of the poison carefully every time? Then he reached out to pull the stopper off the vial. Cassis said slowly, are you trying to hide this from Rosalia? Look carefully. This handsome little boy's hand is holding a bottle of poison. His father even asked him how it tasted. In order not to let Rosalia worry, Ace did not tell her. Cassis said slowly, you are deceiving her. Ace didn't think so. You can't say it like that. I am doing this for her own good. Although he didn't want to drink it either. Father's words were correct. This is the survival method of the Sod family. Ace opened the stopper and drank it in one go. Instantly, he felt pain. The ingredients of the poisons are different, and the body's reaction after drinking is also vastly different. Fortunately, this poison took effect quickly, compared to that kind of chronic poison that tortures people bit by bit. This was better. Ace said calmly, to survive, I cannot stop the medicine, but I also don't want Mother to worry. That's why I'm doing this. Cassis stared at Ace. If she saw you like this, she would definitely be greatly shocked. Ace looked at his father indifferently. I advise you best not to speak of it. But even if you said it, she wouldn't believe it. Cassis felt Ace was indeed still a child, actually worrying that he would go tattle. Cassis smiled. You seem very confident. How dare you be sure she won't believe it? Ace was very confident because Mother loves me very much. Since she is on my side, how could she believe you? Cassis fell silent. He recalled what Rosalia had said back then. Why do you slander him? Cassis was very unhappy, yet there was nothing he could do. Ace smiled faintly. By the way, tomorrow I'm going out with Mother. Mother said she wants to go to the clothing store with me. We are going to buy gifts to wear at the next party. Taking advantage of this outing, we will also view the scenery and taste delicious food together. It seems Mother didn't tell you about this matter. Ace deliberately provoked Cassis, being able to go out and play with Mother. I'm so happy. The next morning, Rosalia had just gotten up, and servants were there to help prepare clothes. Rosalia was very happy. Finally, she could go out with Ace. Ace, dressed neatly, greeted Rosalia. You look really beautiful today. Rosalia smiled so much she couldn't close her mouth. Ace really knew how to speak. Then let's set off together. This is the most anxious person to get to work I've ever seen. He arrived at the office before it was even time. The servants were all stunned when they saw Cassis. Why did the Duke come so early today? The sun had only just risen. Cassis indicated he was here to work. The butler didn't understand. Although the Duke had many things to handle every day, there was no need to come to work this early. He asked, did you encounter some tricky matter? Cassis explained, I have something to do this afternoon, so I moved the schedule forward. The butler nodded, indicating he understood. Cassis looked up at the weather outside the window. Why are there so many things to handle today? But the weather today is quite nice. After busy work, the last document was finally finished. Cassis stood up abruptly, and even the chair was knocked over. The servants were all frightened. How anxious was the Duke? Cassis spoke slowly. I have to go out for a bit. Let's end it here for today. Cassis just wanted to leave when the door was pushed open. Duke, it's bad. Something happened. In the poison collection room, a bottle of poison fell to the ground. The bottle also shattered. A man was holding his head, trembling. Seeing this scene, Cassis calmly ordered people to open the windows for ventilation first, and that no one was allowed to approach. The types of poison are countless. There are chronic poisons and also potent poisons that are lethal in low doses. There's also a type of deadly poison that can kill a person just by inhaling a little bit. The bottle that was smashed happened to be this kind of deadly poison. Cassis ordered the servants to leave this place. After all, their bodies might not be able to withstand it. Then he asked the man, what exactly is going on? The man was terrified. Duke, I'm sorry. Cassis held back his temper. Save the apologies for later. Tell me first what happened. The man was still apologizing. Cassis directly revealed his sword. If you don't answer my question again, you will die right now. This man, who made people tremble with fear, was pointing his sword at a servant at this moment. Not 2 seconds later, the servant hurriedly confessed what happened just now. Just a moment ago, he had a stomachache and left his seat to go to the toilet. When he came back in a hurry, he accidentally knocked the medicine bottle to the ground. The man subsequently stated that he was willing to accept any punishment. Cassis asked, how many years have you been here? The man answered, it's been 5 years. Cassis felt utterly speechless, having worked here for so long, to actually make such a low-level mistake. Truly absurd. People working in the poison collection room cannot leave their posts without permission, because various dangerous poisons are collected here. Someone must watch over them at all times. Even if one has to leave temporarily, one must report first. In Cassis's view, this was a willful offense. Seeing his body getting more and more uncomfortable, the man hurriedly reached out his hand to beg Cassis to help him. Cassis stared at the man. The toxicity had already spread to his whole body. Even if sent for treatment, he wouldn't live long. Cassis still couldn't figure it out. He wouldn't go so far as to lose his life just because he broke a bottle of poison. Finally walking out of the room, Cassis ordered, lock him up, cut off his contact with the outside world, and have the doctor give him some painkillers. The butler looked at Cassis. What should we do after this? The people who can replace him are currently in the territory. It will take at least a month for them to rush over, which means there is no one to fill this vacancy right now. Cassis thought for a moment, then find a person in charge from the existing people. It's temporary anyway. No need to find someone proficient in poison knowledge. If you really can't find one, just find a careful person. The butler remembered, there's a servant here who is very good at gathering herbs. Since he often comes into contact with various herbs, maybe he can be competent for this job. Cassis nodded, then choose him. But we still have to test him first. I should do this matter myself. But when Cassis looked out the window, he suddenly remembered he still had things to do. If he delayed any longer, it would be too late. Cassis then let the butler take full responsibility for this matter. After speaking, he left with large strides. He had to go change out of these clothes stained with poisonous gas now, then go find them. Although this little bit of poisonous gas was nothing to Ace, Rosalia definitely couldn't withstand it. Do you dare to believe it? This little boy with an innocent smile is actually a villain. However, he is actually also a pitiful child. Today is the day he goes shopping with his stepmother. Before this, he had never had this kind of experience. Rosalia suggested, why don't we get off the carriage here, then walk over together. Seeing Ace's face full of confusion, Rosalia explained, because the weather is very good today, so I want to hold your hand and stroll down the street together. Ace was stunned. His feeling was really so warm. The two came to a barbecue stall. Rosalia ate with relish. She didn't expect this world to actually have barbecue. The servants on the side felt that the young master would definitely not eat this kind of thing. However, contrary to their expectations, Ace actually ate big mouthfuls. Rosalia was very gratified. Ace was so cute even when eating. He is busy accepting strict family training every day, so he definitely hasn't had time to come out and play. In the future, she must take him out for walks more often. Rosalia suggested, why don't we go to the nearby clothing store to take a look? Ace smiled and agreed. Actually, it didn't matter where they went. As long as he could be with Mother, it was fine. In the clothing store, seeing that the people who came were Rosalia and Ace, the shop assistants excitedly brought out suits. But Rosalia was very dissatisfied. Although they were high-end, they were all black, white, and gray. Not suitable for Ace at all. Children should wear brighter colors. Seeing Rosalia dissatisfied, the shop assistant recommended other colors to her. After all, the Sod family has always only bought black and white color clothes. That's why she recommended those just now. Rosalia remained silent. Seeing her serious appearance, the shop assistant was extremely nervous. If you have any requests, you can mention them. We will try our best to satisfy you. However, what distressed Rosalia was that Ace looked good and everything. She was really too conflicted. The shop assistant had a confused look on her face. The Duchess seemed different from before. Was this her illusion? Rosalia asked Ace which one he liked. Ace thought for a moment and finally said with a smile, I'd better listen to you. I'll wear whatever you buy, because he still wanted to see Mother struggling for his sake. Rosalia's mind was full of Ace. Which one should she buy? Just then, Cassis arrived. What is there to struggle about? Since you like them, then buy them all. Rosalia's heart stopped. Why did Cassis come? Ace looked at his father coldly. He didn't expect father to like joining in the fun so much. Rosalia originally wanted to take Ace to play a bit more, but since Cassis was here, they'd better go home early. Seeing that Rosalia wanted to leave, Cassis looked at her. You pick a few clothes too. Rosalia hurriedly refused, but Ace looked at her expectantly. I also want to see Mother in new clothes. Rosalia wanted to cry, but had no tears. She didn't have the heart to refuse Ace. What exactly did Cassis want to do? She transmigrated to become the villain's stepmother. In order to prevent her son from becoming a villain, Rosalia decided to give him a happy childhood. When Ace heard they were going to play, he wasn't very happy. But the next second he smiled brilliantly. Rosalia was very gratified. This reaction was right. As the heir to the Duke's residence, Ace has a heavy burden on his shoulders. But she still hoped Ace could have a happy childhood. After all, he is still young. Fortunately, she had already greeted Benjamin in advance. Now Ace could finally relax. Rosalia smiled and asked Ace what he wanted to play. Ace remained silent for a while before saying, I usually don't have the chance to come out and play, so I don't know what to play. Rosalia suddenly understood. No wonder Ace had hesitated for so long. She decided to let him think about what game would be good. Then, Rosalia suggested, why don't we play hide and seek? I'll count to 100 and then come find you. You have to hide well, okay? Don't hide in a place that's easy to spot. That wouldn't be any fun. However, for the next hour, Rosalia couldn't find Ace at all. Ace, hiding in a tree, looked confused. The spot he chose wasn't that hard to find. Why couldn't Mother find him? How long would he have to wait? He was already tired of this game. After all, he had learned how to conceal himself at a very young age. When he hid, it was difficult for ordinary people to find him. Beneath the tree, Rosalia was exhausted. Just as she was looking around, Cassis arrived. He found Ace with just a single glance. Rosalia was shocked. So Ace had been hiding in the tree the whole time. But this tree was so tall. How did he climb up there? The next second, Ace jumped down from the tree, landing steadily on the ground. Rosalia stood by, dumbfounded. Cassis asked in confusion, "What are you doing?" Upon learning that the two were playing hide-and-seek, Cassis said to Ace, "Since she couldn't find you, you should have come out on your own." Ace came to a realization. So it could be done that way. Cassis was speechless. Did this little guy genuinely not know, or was he pretending? Rosalia stepped forward and happily praised Ace, saying he was amazing for his first time playing hide-and-seek, and that she would definitely find him next time. Seeing the two of them getting along so harmoniously, Cassis felt like he was being ignored again. Rosalia looked at Ace's smiling face. As long as she stayed by his side, he would surely change slowly. Just then, Cassis whispered, "Why aren't you wearing the dress I bought for you last time?" Rosalia froze. What did he just say? Cassis turned and walked away. Rosalia was left speechless. It seemed Cassis had been staring at her again just now. Couldn't he just let her have a few peaceful days? Can you believe it? This boy with the innocent smile before her eyes is actually the villain in the novel. Ever since playing hide-and-seek with Ace, Rosalia would play with him whenever there were no classes. Now, she could easily find Ace's hiding spots. Besides hide-and-seek, they played many other games. They would build sandcastles together after class, or play simple games like catch. Ace was unfamiliar with these games at first, but he quickly mastered the key points. Ace seemed to be getting more and more cheerful lately. It seemed that playing games with him was the right choice. Everything was developing in a better direction. However, Cassis still gave her a headache, because Cassis always liked to stare fiercely at Rosalia. He already usually had a stern face, and now he looked even scarier, to the point that Rosalia would run whenever she saw him. Rosalia didn't understand where she had offended him this time. In the study, Cassis asked the head butler about Ace's recent studies. The butler replied that all courses were proceeding normally. To prevent the madam from discovering the poison and other things, those lessons were scheduled for the early morning or late at night. Aside from that, when the young master had no classes, he stayed with the madam. They would play various games together. Besides playing games, they would also go to the backyard to drink tea and chat. Cassis lowered his head. Actually, whatever they did had nothing to do with him. But why did he care so much? He didn't know when it started, but whether in the backyard or elsewhere, Cassis would see Ace and Rosalia together. He even began to have an illusion that Ace had really turned into an innocent, cute, ordinary child. His smile was like a warm light, adding a touch of warmth to the cold Duke's residence. At night, Cassis went to Ace's room. Ace asked coldly, "Do you need something from me?" Cassis got straight to the point. "Why do you like Rosalia so much? Is this what they call chasing the wife to the crematorium?" This handsome man before him looked full of worry. His own wife seemed to like his son more than him. Just a moment ago, Rosalia, under the shop assistant's recommendation, had changed into several outfits. Whether gorgeous or elegant, Rosalia could pull them off perfectly. She even made Cassis blush as he watched from the side. Ace praised Rosalia without holding back. Rosalia was extremely happy. "Since Ace likes it, let's buy this one." Cassis, standing aside, said with dissatisfaction, "I think the one from just now looked better." Rosalia pondered Cassis's meaning. Did he want her to buy the previous dress? She wasn't going to listen to Cassis. Rosalia smiled and asked Ace, "Do you think this dress looks good?" Ace was very supportive. He smiled brilliantly. "It looks good. You look even more elegant wearing it." Rosalia was overjoyed. Ace really knew how to give compliments. "Then let's buy this one." Cassis was sulking. She didn't take his words seriously at all. After returning to the Duke's residence, Rosalia looked at the rows of clothes and secretly chuckled. She hadn't intended to buy so many clothes, but while she was trying them on, Ace kept praising her nonstop from the side, so she unconsciously bought this many. Although she said she would pay for them herself, Cassis ended up paying in the end. This made Rosalia feel a bit embarrassed. Why did he pay the bill? Their relationship didn't seem close enough for that, right? Why the sudden attentive gesture? Could it be that the original novel had this kind of plot too, and she just hadn't noticed? Just then, Benjamin walked in. Greetings, madam. I am here today to discuss the young master's education with you. Rosalia sized him up. In the original novel, Rosalia had no interest in Ace's education, so she had never met Benjamin. But since she had transmigrated here, she had to properly understand Ace's study plan. Rosalia expressed that she wanted to do what she could for Ace, so she needed to know his schedule. Benjamin smiled and said, "If the young master knew you cared so much, he would surely be very happy." Then he took out a large stack of documents. "Then let me introduce these courses to you. In the morning, the young master studies politics, economics, and etiquette. In the afternoon, he is at the training grounds to build stamina and practice swordsmanship." Rosalia was stunned. Do children these days have so much pressure? So the villain's academic pressure was this huge. Looking at the pile of courses, Rosalia was truly exasperated. Just then, she noticed some empty spots on the schedule. These time slots were definitely left for those terrifying training sessions. The Saad family's educational methods were too inhumane. Fortunately, it wasn't too late to stop it. Benjamin continued, "It is best to keep the morning courses and swordsmanship lessons, as these subjects are mandatory for noble children." Rosalia pondered. There was no need to interfere with the mandatory courses. She was just worried that Ace would suffer and toil in places she couldn't see. She pointed to the empty time slots and asked, "Nothing is scheduled for these times yet, right?" Benjamin nodded. "We are currently adjusting the young master's schedule, so we removed the courses originally scheduled for this time. As for what courses will be added, it hasn't been decided yet." Rosalia smiled slightly. "Then let me stay with him during this time. Don't arrange other lessons for him for now. That shouldn't be a problem, right?" Benjamin was stunned. Although he had heard that the madam wanted to personally participate in the young master's education, he couldn't guess what she intended to do at all. Benjamin had to ask madam, "What do you plan to do with this time?" Rosalia already had a plan to play with Ace, of course. She not only wanted to play with Ace, but also ensure he played happily enough. Benjamin broke into a sweat. The image of the young master playing happily was truly unimaginable. After Benjamin withdrew, Rosalia thought to herself, professional knowledge should still be taught by teachers. After all, she didn't understand the history and geography here. What she could do was spend more time with Ace, letting him live happily every day. For a child, playing is very important. After all, a happy childhood is a person's lifelong wealth. Moreover, as a kindergarten teacher, what she was best at was playing with children. In the afternoon, after the swordsmanship class ended, Ace was wiping the sweat from his face. Just then, Rosalia popped up from behind him. Ace looked confused. Why would mother come here? Rosalia happily invited Ace. "Let's play together in a bit." And she held his hand tightly. There's no class during this time. Ace just needs to play to his heart's content. But he wasn't as happy as Rosalia imagined. Instead, he looked indifferent. Rosalia was a bit at a loss. She thought Ace would be very happy. This is the most bizarre father and son I've ever seen. The father asks the son why he likes his mother. Ace recalled Rosalia's smiling face and smiled himself. "Because I never dared to hope that I could have such a good mother. Since I have one now, I should cherish her." Her gentle gaze and warm smile made Ace unable to extricate himself. Before, he felt he didn't need motherly love at all. But when Rosalia walked to his side, he realized how happy it was to be loved. Now, he couldn't leave Rosalia. The next day, Rosalia looked at Cassis in shock. "What did you just say?" Cassis didn't understand why her reaction was so big. So he repeated, "I said we were going to the Imperial Palace." Rosalia asked weakly, "Can I not go?" This was too sudden. Cassis did not agree. "This time, His Majesty specifically invited us as guests. You don't need to be so nervous. It's just to say hello." Actually, Cassis had wanted to tell her this news a long time ago. It was just that recently, he was only focused on observing whether she was wearing the clothes he bought, so he forgot to say it. Cassis comforted her. "His Majesty only saw you once at our wedding. He said he wants to get to know you again. This is just a whim of His Majesty. You don't need to be too nervous." Rosalia fell silent. That might be true, but how could she not be nervous? This was her first time coming to the Imperial Palace. The magnificent palace before her eyes made her breathless. Facing the high and mighty emperor, Rosalia was extremely nervous. The emperor spoke slowly. "Lady Saad, you seem a bit different from when we last met." Rosalia gave a dry laugh. The emperor smiled slightly. I remember you always had a cold demeanor before. Seeing the emperor laughing so happily, Rosalia felt relieved. He shouldn't have any ill intentions toward her. Cassis spoke slowly. Please stop teasing her. The emperor continued to banter. It seems your mother-son relationship is quite good. Rosalia paused for a moment before realizing. Because she was too nervous just now, she had forgotten about Ace. Holding his hand in front of his majesty seemed a bit improper. Rosalia decided to let go first, but the next second, her hand was firmly grasped by Ace. Ace smiled and looked at the emperor. That's right. Our relationship is very good. The emperor shifted his gaze to Cassis and Rosalia. However, you husband and wife don't seem very close. Can you believe it? These two men and women who look like total strangers are actually a married couple. Facing the emperor's teasing, Cassis appeared very impatient. You don't need to worry about such matters. Rosalia was scared into a cold sweat. He spoke too freely to his majesty. She didn't want to be beheaded. The emperor was not angry, but laughed instead. Ace, you look more and more like the Duke. I wonder if you are like the Duke in other aspects as well. Ace didn't give his father any face at all, and no matter which aspect. I will be more excellent than father. The emperor aimed his spearhead at Rosalia again. Duchess, do you also think Ace will be more outstanding than the Duke in the future? Rosalia was stunned. Why did his majesty suddenly ask such a question? Rosalia glanced at Cassis. He was staring intently at her again, and Ace also looked expectant. Rosalia couldn't bear not to choose him. Finally, nervous, she spoke slowly. Yes, your majesty. Ace is still young, and his future holds infinite possibilities. The emperor laughed happily. That it seems Ace is a cut above. Ace, you must work hard. Don't disappoint the Duchess's expectations for you. Since we rarely meet, let's chat a bit longer. But will Ace find it boring for adults to chat? Ace didn't take the bait. Instead, he expressed that he wasn't bored at all. The emperor emphasized again, you surely prefer hanging out with peers. Go check out the crown prince's residence. Ace's face turned dark. Thank you for your concern, but I'll stay here. Rosalia looked at Ace. He seemed very reluctant. The emperor still didn't agree. Stop declining. Go to the crown prince's residence and wait for your parents. This was already a very obvious order to leave. Ace had no choice but to walk out. That damn emperor. He knew perfectly well that he didn't get along with Crown Prince, yet he insisted on sending him over. Inside the training grounds, the Crown Prince was practicing. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't perform the correct movements. If the foundation wasn't laid well, it would be hard to improve swordsmanship levels. Just then, the Knight Commander, Riaz, noticed Ace. The Crown Prince, Lucas, didn't hide his disgust at all. Why are you here? Get out immediately. Can you believe it? This boy who looks innocent and pure on the outside is actually the strongest villain. Facing the high and mighty Crown Prince, Ace said provocatively, His Majesty told me to come. If you're not happy, you can go argue with him. The two confronted each other. Lucas wished he could swallow Ace whole. The servants watching this scene were also terrified. Were they going to fight? Riaz stood in front of them. Are you two pretending I don't exist? Lucas quickly bowed to apologize. He shouldn't have been so rude. Ace said coldly, Since you don't want to see me, just pretend I don't exist. Anyway, I have nothing to do right now. I could train with you guys. Riaz saw that Ace had obtained his consent. Lucas gritted his teeth. This arrogant guy, he would definitely teach him a lesson. Ace picked up a wooden sword and swung it a few times in succession. Riaz watched, full of praise. Master Ace's movements were standard, and he didn't make the same mistakes as the Crown Prince. Truly worthy of being the heir to the Sod family. Although the Crown Prince was doing well too, he certainly wouldn't be resigned to being outdone by someone else, especially when that person was Ace, whom he hated the most. Sure enough, the unyielding Lucas spoke up. Do you want to spar with me? Ace wasn't afraid at all. He looked at Lucas and then smiled and agreed. The two faced off with wooden swords. Lucas launched the attack first. However, this move was easily blocked by Ace. Where had the servants ever seen such a scene? They were fighting too intensely. Should they go stop it? Riaz indicated to leave them alone. Actually, the two of them had wanted to fight for a long time. It was just due to their status that they hadn't acted until now. Moreover, letting them spar with each other was a good thing, because Ace's excellence would stimulate the Crown Prince, thereby urging him to improve continuously. Through sparring, they would both benefit greatly, so he had no reason to stop them. On the other side, the Emperor laughed. I hope the relationship between Ace and the Crown Prince can ease somewhat. Perhaps if they meet a few more times, they will become close. Duchess, what do you think? This woman transmigrated. She didn't become a wealthy villainess, nor did she become the kind heroine. Instead, she became the villain's stepmother. But in her eyes, her son was the best and kindest child. Rosalia replied, Ace is kind and gentle. They should become good friends very soon. Hearing this, the Emperor and Cassis were stunned. Did they hear that right just now? Rosalia was startled. Did she say something wrong? But Ace was indeed a cute and kind child. The Emperor immediately laughed out loud. I didn't expect the Duchess to be so humorous. Chatting with you all is really interesting. I haven't laughed this happily in a long time. You must come often in the future. No wonder Ace has become different from before. It turns out he was influenced by the madam. This is a nice change. I hope the Crown Prince can get along well with Ace. Only if our two families maintain a good relationship can we consolidate our current status. I don't want to see the royal family being undermined by the nobles again. Rosalia and Cassis were speechless for a moment. The Emperor's words had a deeper meaning. His hand tapped on the chair. Then he gave Rosalia a look. Rosalia understood this was a hint for her. He didn't want her to participate in the upcoming conversation. Rosalia spoke tactfully. Your Majesty, may I look around the palace? The Emperor was very willing and stated he would order someone to guide Rosalia. Then the Emperor added, if you feel bored, you could go visit the Crown Prince. If he offends you in any way, you can scold him directly. He lost his mother at a young age, so I have always indulged him. He's about to be spoiled rotten by me. After Rosalia withdrew, she was led by servants to the palace courtyard. The servants introduced, from here, you can overlook the entire palace. You can admire the nearby scenery here. Rosalia was amazed. Was this the scene described in the original novel? It was too spectacular. Just then, Rosalia suddenly remembered something. Wasn't the Crown Prince the male lead in the original novel? What is it like for your son to be the big villain? Looking at the novel's male protagonist in front of her, Rosalia panicked. Her attention had been focused on Ace, and she had completely forgotten about the Crown Prince. He was the protagonist of this novel and also Ace's nemesis. She hoped Ace wouldn't get into trouble. Before long, Ace poked his head out. Rosalia smiled and waved hello. Judging by his expression, there shouldn't have been any conflict between the two. Was she worrying too much? Rosalia quickly curtsied upon seeing them. Just then, Lucas also appeared. He was young, but had a serious face. Ace looked at Rosalia happily, smiling brightly as he said he could accompany her to tour the palace. Lucas said speechlessly, is there any place in the palace you haven't been to? However, Ace's innocent look was completely different from before. After the two left the others, Rosalia asked Ace, how is your relationship with His Highness the Crown Prince? Ace lowered his head and indicated it wasn't good. Compared to the Crown Prince, he preferred staying with Mother. Rosalia laughed awkwardly. Their relationship was indeed very poor. However, judging by His Majesty's behavior, he seemed to really hope these two children could be closer. What should she do to ease their relationship? That way, Ace's fate would change accordingly. But no matter how much effort she put in now, it was useless. Because the biggest change determining their relationship was the novel's heroine, Alicia, whom they would meet after becoming adults. Just then, a girl brushed past them. Rosalia froze instantly. Long black hair and green eyes. Wasn't she Alicia from the novel? Everything happened so suddenly. Not only did she enter the palace and see the Emperor today, but she also met the protagonists of the original novel, Lucas and Alicia. She was so familiar with the content of the novel, so how could she have completely forgotten about the main characters? Although the Crown Prince is still a young boy, he already possesses great dignity. In the original novel, he was an upright person who gained popularity early on. After he ascended the throne, the country became even more prosperous. However, due to his excessive criticism of Alicia, the great achievements he built were all destroyed by Ace. Wait a minute. Rosalia remembered that Marquis Riaz and Cassis had a falling out long ago. Since they decided never to interact with each other again, they shouldn't be entering the Imperial Palace at the same time. But now Ace actually encountered Alicia. Although they just passed by each other, what if the next time they meet, Ace becomes interested in her? What should she do then? How can she stop Ace from turning evil? Just as Rosalia was lost in thought, Ace suddenly hugged her. Mother, there's a pond ahead. I called you several times, but you didn't react. Are you all right? Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Rosalia stroked Ace's head, indicating that she was fine and had just zoned out for a moment. Although she wasn't prepared for all these sudden events, she could be sure of at least one thing. She needed to care more for Ace. Rosalia looked at Ace with a smile. The scenery here is beautiful. Let's walk around a few more times before going back. After all, she had just gotten familiar with this world, so it was better not to be too hasty. She took Ace's hand and walked towards another area. Right now, she needed to focus all her energy on Ace. She absolutely could not let Ace meet that kind of ending. This boy is the male lead of the novel. At this moment, Lucas simply couldn't believe his eyes. That gloomy and vicious rival actually showed an innocent smile to his stepmother. He actually changed his face in an instant. Just then, a servant came forward to report that Lady Alicia was asking to see him. Lucas immediately walked out after hearing this. He went forward to welcome Alicia and asked if her journey had been tiring. Alicia smiled and said it was fine. Looking at Alicia's beautiful smile, Lucas's heart beat fast, and he felt like he was going to melt. At this time, Riaz also arrived. Alicia, why did you come here again? You were like this last time too. If you always come and go as you please. However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Lucas. Teacher, please don't say that. What if you scare her? Alicia hid behind Lucas and acted coquettishly. Yes, father, I won't hinder his highness. Riaz sighed. Sooner or later, he would have to teach this girl a proper lesson. Riaz was just about to withdraw when Lucas invited him to have tea together. Riaz stated that if he did so, his highness's schedule would be disrupted. Lucas looked apologetic, and Alicia was also worried that her father would send her away. Riaz spoke up. Alicia, you stay here for a little while, and then go back. Having received her father's permission, Alicia was extremely happy. Afterward, she went to have afternoon tea with Lucas. Alicia spoke slowly. It seems someone just left from here. Were they guests of your highness? Lucas frowned instantly upon hearing this. He said with a bad attitude, don't ask. Knowing won't do you any good. On the other side, the emperor was summoning Cassis, and no matter how much I suppress them, they still harbor hope, waiting for a day when they can take advantage of a weakness. I cannot trust those nobles. Cassis spoke slowly, but I am also a noble. From the perspective of the world, in the struggle between the emperor and the nobles, it seems the emperor has the upper hand. But this is just an appearance. In fact, the emperor has always been constrained by the nobles. To the emperor, they are powerful enemies that are difficult to eliminate. The emperor looked at Cassis earnestly. Although you are a noble, I know you are on my side. Thanks to you, I was able to become emperor. After all, we share a common memory. The reason the emperor and Cassis could form an alliance was not just because of common interests, but because of the strong bond between them. The emperor continued, I hope the imperial family becomes stronger, so I greatly need the support of your family. This man is too eccentric. The emperor expressed his need for support, but Cassis told the emperor to stop ordering him around. The emperor's hearty laughter echoed through the palace corridor. Looking at it this way, I indeed owe you many favors. However, the person I owe the most is still the empress. Although we parted a bit early in this life, if there is a next life, I will definitely be with her forever. I will never forget the empress in this lifetime. That is why. I hope the crown prince can also find his true love. Cassis asked in return, is love really that good? Is it really that unforgettable? What magic does it have to make the emperor miss his wife so much? And Ace, his love for Rosalia comes entirely from the heart. The same goes for Rosalia. No matter what he says, she stands firmly on Ace's side. Perhaps it was her steadfastness that allowed Ace to open his heart. Love and mothers. What is the meaning of these things' existence? Cassis's parents simply fulfilled the obligations of a married couple and guardians. They had no special feelings for him. They never cared about Cassis. He grew up under the education of a wet nurse. It was the same for Ace. Or rather, this was a normal occurrence in the Sod family. But Ace suddenly grew fond of Rosalia. It was an emotion both of them could feel. Cassis didn't understand. Why was he the only one who couldn't comprehend it? If someone had taken care of him like Rosalia when he was a child, would he have turned out differently? Cassis pondered deeply. Would I also be able to experience that kind of emotion from her? If that love Rosalia has for Ace report onto him, what would happen? Ever since Cassis had this thought, he couldn't approach Ace and Rosalia like before. Whenever Rosalia and Ace were together, Cassis would find ways to wander nearby, but he would only watch from a distance. Because whenever he tried to get close to Rosalia, she and Ace would stop laughing and talking. At this moment in the yard, Rosalia was playing catch with Ace. Rosalia had a smile on her face, telling Ace to throw as much as he wanted. But inside, she was crying a river of tears. She was really so tired. Ace looked like he still had plenty of energy, but she had no strength left, and her legs kept trembling. Ace seemed to notice her discomfort. Ace asked, "Mother, are you all right?" Rosalia maintained her smile that "Don't worry, I'm fine." However, the next second, her legs went soft and she twisted her ankle. Rosalia was about to fall. This was terrible. She was going to embarrass herself in front of Ace. But in the next second, she actually fell into Cassis's arms. This woman had transmigrated. She didn't become the kind heroine or the vicious second female lead, but the villain's stepmother. At this moment, she had fallen into the arms of the villain's father. Cassis teased, "You were playing the game very vigorously just now." Rosalia couldn't understand what was going on. Cassis continued, "Are you not planning to get up?" Rosalia's face turned red. That was so embarrassing just now. Why was Cassis here? Rosalia quickly put some distance between them. Cassis frowned slightly at her action. It seemed they still minded his presence. Whenever he appeared, they acted as if they had seen a ghost. It made him want to speak harsh words every time. But he couldn't do that today. Cassis calmed himself down. "You seem to be struggling while playing just now." Rosalia was annoyed. Was Cassis looking down on her stamina? She spoke up. "What exactly do you want to say?" Cassis suspected he had said the wrong thing again. He spoke gently. "You two seem to be playing together often recently." Rosalia just prayed he would have some tact and leave quickly and stop disturbing her and Ace. So Rosalia nodded that, "I just want to spend more time with Ace." Cassis lowered his head and stammered, "You guys look really heartwarming." Rosalia's eyes widened. Did she hear that right just now? Cassis smiled slightly. Saying something like that is actually quite embarrassing. Rosalia didn't understand. Why was this person laughing at himself after speaking? He must be mocking her for her futile efforts. Cassis spoke again. "Benjamin said you're doing this for Ace's emotional education. Parental companionship is very important for children. But why don't you let me participate too? Since parental companionship is important for children, then you should call me along as well." Rosalia was speechless for a moment. She actually felt that what Cassis said made sense. But that scene was just too hard to imagine. Cassis said earnestly, "If I participate too, wouldn't the results be even better? Besides, you're already very tired. You probably don't have the energy to keep playing with him, right?" Rosalia looked back at Ace. She had always been so sensitive towards Cassis, and she had always been suspicious. Would acting like this bring a bad influence on Ace? Regardless of what Cassis's goal was, as long as he could give Ace fatherly love, it was fine. Rosalia asked, "Are you really willing to play with us?" She saw Cassis reveal a smile. Then he nodded. Can you believe it? This was supposed to be a heartwarming little game between father and son. However, it was filled with killing intent. Rosalia watched the ball flash past her face. She was already in disarray. Cassis praised, "You caught that ball pretty well." Ace smiled, "This is just a piece of cake for me." Then the two of them threw the ball with all their might. Rosalia sweated. Was playing ball just an excuse? They were actually competing against each other, weren't they? But on the surface, Ace was smiling happily. Inside, however, he was thinking, what kind of trick is father playing now? Meanwhile, Cassis secretly thought, it's rare for me to take time out to play with him. You should be thanking me. The two stared at each other, their eyes filled with anger. Celia felt she should stop them. After playing for quite a while, Ace was drenched in sweat. His hand slipped, and the ball fell to the ground. Rosalia wanted to call a stop, but Ace refused to admit defeat. The two of them played like this until the sun went down. After the intense exercise, although Ace was sweating like rain, his mood seemed quite good. Rosalia handed a towel to Ace, telling him to wipe his sweat well and that he could take a bath in a while. Ace acted coquettishly, "But I want to eat dinner with you first." Just then, the silent Cassis spoke up from the side, "Then aren't you going to give me a towel? I also sweated a lot." Hearing this, a servant nearby immediately appeared beside Rosalia with a towel. Rosalia had no choice but to hand the towel over. Cassis took the towel with satisfaction and wiped his sweat with a smile. Rosalia couldn't help but wonder, when did he become so childish? Meanwhile, Ace was very dissatisfied with this. What exactly is father planning? In the dining room, Rosalia looked satisfied. Food really tastes better after exercising. Noble food is indeed different. This was the best steak she had ever eaten. Halfway through eating, Rosalia suddenly realized that she seemed to have forgotten the existence of the other two. Ace was currently wolfing down his food and indicated he wanted more meat. Although Cassis was incomparably elegant, he also indicated that he needed another serving. Rosalia laughed. Although it was a bit strange, watching the two of them compete was actually quite fun. At this moment, Cassis spoke. From now on, include me in whatever you do. Rosalia's smile froze instantly. This sentence was simply a bolt from the blue. This man was the cold and ruthless Duke who made people tremble with fear. At this moment, however, he made a jaw-dropping request that when Rosalia and Ace played together, they should bring him along. Rosalia was stunned. Did he mean that besides breakfast, they had to eat dinner together too? Cassis asked in return, "It should be fine for me to join your activities, right? Didn't we have a good time today?" Rosalia expressed that it was better not to take up his time. Ace also chimed in, "It's enough for me to have mother's company." But Cassis smiled and said, "That won't do. No matter how busy I am, I must make time to accompany my precious son." Rosalia thought to herself secretly. Normally, she would definitely start suspecting Cassis's intentions. After all, he was the big villain in the original novel who controlled everything. But today, he didn't seem any different from an ordinary father. Those words he just said, and his actions today didn't seem fake. However, even if Cassis changed only a tiny bit, that would be a good thing for Ace. Rosalia turned to Ace and said she had something to say to the Duke, asking him to go back and rest first. Although Ace was a bit puzzled, he still left obediently. After Ace left, Cassis asked, "You sent Ace away specifically. What did you want to tell me?" Rosalia voiced her confusion. "What did you mean by those words just now?" Cassis replied, "Exactly what they meant literally." Rosalia said seriously, "Please do not be vague." Cassis spoke faintly. "I had a very happy day today, spending a pleasant time together as a family. Isn't this what you wanted? Since we are a family, you can't leave me out." Rosalia felt that Cassis was right. If she could use Cassis's change to make Ace understand how to cherish family, that would be good. She asked again, "Do you really want to be with us?" Cassis nodded. Of course. After all, we are a family now. The next day, Rosalia happily suggested, "Why don't we go for a picnic together? I heard from the butler that your schedule is very full, so we can't go too far. So let's have a picnic in the yard." Cassis smiled slightly. "Then let's do as you say." Rosalia looked at Cassis's handsome face and suddenly felt her heart race and her face flush. What was going on? Why was he suddenly so gentle? Ace looked expectant. "Mother, are we really going for a picnic?" This successfully diverted Rosalia's attention. She began talking and laughing with Ace, completely ignoring Cassis on the side. In order to get closer to them, Cassis decided he couldn't always speak with thorns in the future. In the afternoon, Rosalia, having gotten ready, walked slowly into the yard. For the sake of the villain family's harmony, she was going all out today. When passing under the tree, Rosalia couldn't believe her eyes. Cassis was actually the first to arrive. She didn't expect him to be so enthusiastic. Cassis said gently, "Thanks to you, I can take this opportunity to relax properly." This woman was reborn as the villain's stepmother. Years later, she would be killed by her son's own hands. To survive, Rosalia decided to have a good relationship with her son. On this day, she proposed a heartwarming picnic involving the whole family. Unexpectedly, the usually cold Cassis arrived early. Facing the handsome and gentle Cassis, Rosalia was extremely shy. To divert her attention, she pretended to look for Ace. Cassis noticed Rosalia's discomfort. He knew she wasn't used to being alone with him yet, so he spoke up. "The weather's really nice today. It's a good thing I listened to you and came for a picnic." It was the first time Rosalia had seen Cassis smile so gently. Just because of that gentleness, his whole demeanor seemed different. Just then, Ace arrived. Cassis secretly grumbled that for this guy to come so early, he must have skipped a class. Ace had a smile on his face. Did father think that by setting the picnic time so early, he would be late? He opened his mouth to praise Rosalia's suggestion as excellent, saying it was very comfortable to picnic in the yard. The two of them started talking and laughing again. Cassis was ignored once more. This kid, Ace, was like a completely different person in front of Rosalia. The three of them found a place to sit down. Then they stared at each other. Ace asked Rosalia what they should do next. Rosalia was confused. Had the two of them never been on a picnic before? A clear sky, a gentle breeze, and blooming flowers. All the necessary conditions for a picnic were met. But the three of them had nothing to talk about. Rosalia suggested, "Why don't we eat something together first?" Rosalia took out the sandwiches she made herself. She didn't know if they would suit their tastes. After all, they grew up eating delicacies from the mountains and seas. However, to Rosalia's surprise, Cassis actually praised the sandwich she made as very good. Although Rosalia thought this was strange, she felt that Cassis looked quite cute like this. Afterwards, although the three of them didn't chat much, everyone's face was beaming with a happy smile. The atmosphere was much better than Rosalia had expected. Rosalia suddenly felt that Cassis was actually quite nice. She must have misunderstood Cassis before. It was really unexpected that Cassis would make such a big change. Suddenly, Cassis reached out his hand towards Rosalia. He wiped a breadcrumb off the corner of her mouth. Rosalia thanked him shyly. Cassis indicated it was just a small effort. He suggested that next time, everyone could go to the villa for a vacation. Rosalia looked at him sincerely. After interacting with you during this time, I realized that you actually have a very gentle side. Rosalia not only didn't fear Cassis now, but she even developed a hint of affection for him. After they finished eating, Cassis suggested calling a painter over. He wanted to record this beautiful moment. Rosalia nodded. It seemed Cassis was very happy today. If only every day could be as happy as today. The painter rushed over after receiving the order. However, he looked very nervous. After all, facing the terrifying big villain, anyone would be trembling with fear. Although his hands were shaking nonstop, he still worked hard to paint for them. After the painter finished, Rosalia exclaimed in admiration, "This is simply too perfect. Can you believe it?" Such a heartwarming scene before her eyes actually came from the villain's family. Cassis also thought the painting was not bad. However, he had a question. Did the painter notice where he was looking the whole time while painting? The painter replied, "You seem to be looking at the madam the whole time." Cassis didn't believe it. The painter must have drawn whatever he wanted. The painter was trembling with fear. He guaranteed he didn't draw randomly. Rosalia also didn't understand why Cassis was unwilling to admit it. The painter said tremblingly, "Lord Duke, you must believe me. While I was painting, you were indeed staring at the madam the entire time." Ace felt the painter wasn't lying. While the painter was working, his mother had been holding him the whole time. This was clearly reflected in the painting. He was smiling happily that I was holding Mother's hand just now. I was so happy. Rosalia was delighted. Ace really knew how to say the sweetest things. The painter was so scared he was incoherent. "Lord Duke, look, both the madam and the young master can testify for me. I wasn't speaking nonsense. The three of you truly looked very happy." After saying this, the painter excused himself, leaving the three of them standing there in the wind, utterly bewildered. After a while, Rosalia suggested hanging the painting in Ace's room. Seeing that Cassis remained silent, Rosalia was about to reach out her hand, but was frightened by the cold look in Cassis's eyes. Why had Cassis turned like this again? What on earth was going on? At this moment, Cassis felt a turmoil within. Was he really looking at Rosalia the entire time? Why hadn't he noticed it himself? He thought that through his family's training, he could control his emotions perfectly. He never expected there would be a time when he lost control. After the picnic ended, Cassis locked himself in his room, refusing to see anyone. From time to time, strange noises would come from inside. No one knew what he was doing. Meanwhile, Cassis felt incredibly confused by his own loss of control. Perhaps this wasn't a loss of control at all. He had been pondering lately how to get closer to Rosalia. So, staring at her was merely to achieve that goal. Cassis smiled confidently. To think he was so troubled just because of a single remark from a painter. It was truly speechless. He comforted himself, thinking, "I've just been too sensitive these past few days. Everything is proceeding according to plan. I haven't lost control." Having thought it through, Cassis felt relieved. He walked out of his room and said to the servants, "I should go have breakfast now." In the hallway, Cassis looked at that painting. Although he had agonized over it for 3 days, the moment he saw it, his heart suddenly calmed down. In the dining room, Rosalia heard a noise. She turned around happily. "Lord Duke, you're here." Rosalia felt that since Cassis had come, she shouldn't be cold either. After all, he was also working hard for family harmony. Cassis smiled. Rosalia actually greeted him this time. It seemed his efforts weren't in vain. This man was a great villain respected even by the emperor. Yet, he had fallen for his wife. After 3 days of seclusion and reflection, he was certain he didn't care about Rosalia. In the dining room, Rosalia looked at Cassis, thinking she had done something to make him unhappy. Beside her, Ace, eager to protect his mother, said, "You didn't do anything wrong. Father is just acting like this because he's shy." Rosalia looked at Cassis in confusion. Why would he be shy? Cassis gave a faint smile. How could I possibly be shy? I just needed time to organize my thoughts. Rosalia suddenly realized, so that's what it was. But after not seeing you for a few days, you've become much more handsome, Cassis. Looking at Rosalia's reddening ears, Cassis teased, it seems the shy one is you. Your ears are all red. Ace, sitting nearby, was very dissatisfied. Why was father smiling again? Why was he pretending to be gentle? What scheme was he plotting this time? Seeing Ace's unfriendly gaze, Cassis understood the kid was being difficult again. Well then, he'd tease him a bit. Cassis quipped, I've been bored lately, so I thought I'd imitate my precious son. Ace felt goosebumps rising. Imitate me? What are you talking about? The corners of Cassis's mouth lifted even higher. Truly a child. He took the bait so quickly. Cassis continued, imitating your acting skills, of course. Ace scoffed internally. Father understood nothing. Although he hid things from his mother, he truly loved her. He only dropped his disguise in front of her. But what father meant now was it that he wanted to pretend to be gentle to use that as a chance to hurt mother. Cassis seemed to read his mind that I won't hurt your mother. By the way, let me give you a piece of advice. If you want to keep her tied to you, isn't getting closer to me a good strategy? Ace's eyes turned serious. Although he was annoyed, father's words made sense. He would definitely keep an eye on his father. If he dared to hurt mother, Ace certainly wouldn't stand by and watch. After that, no matter how busy Cassis was, he would take time to see Rosalia. The awkwardness between them faded. Sometimes they would even go for walks in the garden. Compared to when she first arrived, Rosalia was no longer so anxious. Cassis, whom she used to avoid like the plague, was now chatting and laughing with her. Life was truly unpredictable. Who could have imagined that this originally cold villain would recently become so gentle? Cassis cared deeply for Rosalia. If you don't have enough money to spend, you can tell the butler. Rosalia laughed. With so much money, how could it not be enough? Cassis still urged her uneasily. Just ask for whatever you need. There's no need to care about others' opinions. No matter how large your expenses are, I can afford it. If anyone dares to give you attitude, you can tell me too. Rosalia suddenly felt that Cassis had become so gentle. Although he spoke bluntly, his attitude was incredibly softer compared to before. He must be caring about me, she thought. Rosalia happily expressed that everyone treated her very well. She was telling the truth. The servants were indeed much more respectful to her now. Although she had initially avoided him for self-preservation, many things had changed now. Who would have thought that the current her would be leisurely strolling with Cassis? If only they could stay together happily like a family in the future. After all, this was her greatest wish in the real world too. Cassis asked, is there anything you want to do recently? Rosalia smiled and suggested, how about the three of us go out to play together? Cassis was puzzled. I asked that all. Rosalia nodded with a beaming smile. Cassis found it strange. How was this woman so easily satisfied? Cassis was about to say something when his head suddenly throbbed with pain. Rosalia asked worriedly what happened. Cassis shook his head, indicating he was fine. Just then, the butler arrived. Lord Duke, it should be almost time. Rosalia was confused. What did the butler mean? Since that day, Rosalia hadn't seen Cassis again. When she asked the servants where Cassis went, the only response she got was that they didn't know. Rosalia pondered. Cassis really dealt with a myriad of affairs every day. Although he was busy before, he seemed even busier now. Actually, Rosalia knew that Cassis had been specifically making time to accompany her before. But why had he suddenly disappeared these past few days? Could it be that something happened to him? This man, who was a villain, had an unspeakable secret. Every year, he would fall ill with an unexplained serious sickness. Once the illness started, he had to stay in bed for a week. Cassis had considered many possibilities, such as whether there was something wrong with his body or if he had contracted some disease. But even after commissioning experts to research it, no exact cause was found. They all said it might just be a minor cold. Although Cassis wasn't the type to catch a cold easily, this was the only reasonable explanation. The fact that he was bedridden for a week due to a cold was kept completely secret from the outside world. Even Ace didn't know. Once Cassis started feeling unwell, he wouldn't take a step out of his room. At the dinner table, Rosalia looked at the empty seat. Cassis didn't come to eat again today. Even Ace didn't know the reason. Ace didn't think much of it. It had only been a few days. Before, they hadn't even seen each other for a month. Rosalia's heart ached. The Duke doesn't have time to accompany you. You must feel very lonely. Ace smiled brightly. Don't I have you by my side now? Compared to being alone like before, he preferred how things were now. After finishing her meal, Rosalia kept thinking about these things. It was the same when Ace had his allergy before. He suddenly disappeared. If she hadn't gone looking for him then, she certainly wouldn't have known he was allergic to peaches. Rather than letting her imagination run wild alone, Rosalia decided to go see Cassis. However, just as she reached the door, she was stopped by the guards. No one is allowed to enter here. Rosalia was even more worried now. Could he be injured? But Cassis wouldn't get injured so easily. If nothing happened to him, was he hiding because he didn't want to see her? Thinking of this, Rosalia felt a bit sad. She hadn't provoked him. Why was he doing this? No, she had to see him today. Rosalia pleaded with the guards, asking them to announce her one more time. Finally, Rosalia entered the room. She walked hurriedly to the bedside, only to see a shocking scene. Cassis lay on the bed, incredibly weak and looking like he was in great pain. The butler explained, "The Duke just has a cold. He will recover after resting in bed for a week." Rosalia found it hard to believe. Is it really just a cold? It looks like he's suffering so much. At this point, the butler urged her, wanting Rosalia to leave quickly. Rosalia stated she wanted to stay a while longer and that she wouldn't speak of this to anyone. She said loudly, "I want to stay by the Duke's side. None of you can drive me away." This woman had been reborn as the Duchess. Not only was her husband a villain, but even her son was a villain. Yet, her powerful husband was now sick like this. Rosalia's heart ached terribly. Cassis opened his eyes and comforted her. "I just get sick occasionally. I'll be fine after a sleep. Don't worry." Rosalia finally understood. Cassis, like Ace, had a dark childhood. Whenever they were in pain, they always bore it alone with no one by their side. That was why she unconsciously thought of Ace when she saw Cassis. To survive in this world where the weak are prey to the strong, they gradually blackened into villains. Cassis surely hated being seen in a weak state. But Rosalia didn't want to leave now. Rosalia hoped that when Cassis was in pain, there would be someone by his side he could rely on. She asked sincerely, "Can you let me stay by your side?" Cassis was deeply moved. No one had ever said such words to him. In truth, Cassis's childhood wasn't happy. The training he underwent was even stricter than Ace's. But to survive, Cassis gave his all just to be perfect. After becoming the heir, he faced even greater pressure. Many relatives coveted the position of heir. Therefore, Cassis not only had to deal with political enemies, but also guard against traitors within. Being allergic to peaches was once his weakness too. Relatives often used this weakness to tease him. But the more they did, the less he wanted to bow his head. Meanwhile, his parents just watched coldly from the sidelines, treating this as a test for Cassis. Cassis ate the peach with a smile on his face. This action disappointed his relatives greatly. After leaving calmly, Cassis returned to his room and immediately threw up. In fact, his allergic reaction to peaches was even more severe than Ace's. Since then, to overcome this weakness, Cassis constantly forced himself to eat peaches. Even though it was painful every day, he didn't give up. This war ended with Cassis's victory. It was precisely because of this experience that he became someone who would use any means to achieve his goals. Just like that, he gradually grew into a notorious villain. Those who wanted to bring him down could only stare in frustration. Ever since Cassis stopped being allergic to peaches, he frequently experienced unexplained cold symptoms. This strange illness had been tormenting Cassis. Having endured harsh training since childhood, he naturally believed that bearing pain alone was only right. Cassis hated it most when others saw his weak side. But after hearing Rosalia's words, he finally decided to let her stay. With her guarding his side, Cassis felt very at peace. So this was what it felt like to be cared for. Was this the warmth Ace felt? No wonder Ace liked Rosalia so much.